I find this case study particularly fascinating because it taps into something that most of us share, which is a natural curiosity about our parents. When my parents unfortunately both passed away fairly young, and we had the opportunity to look through a lot of old documents and love letters between them and that sort of thing. And it's wonderful to get to know your parents better even after they've passed away. And so I understand the motivation of the person in this case who wants to understand more about his father's time during the war, and he wants to understand more about this relationship and how it's affected his mother and how it affected his father. It's very natural for us to be curious about our family relationships and about our mother and our father in particular. So that's a very natural desire. Of course, our question is, under what circumstances is it ethical for us to satisfy that desire? If a parent were alive and we asked them questions about a period of their life and they didn't want to answer those questions, we would respect their wishes. And so naturally we might wonder, does it really change matters much when that person has passed away? A couple of observations about this case. The first thing is I want to mention, and this is something that Randy Koehl says a couple of times, but in this case he says that the uncle is beyond embarrassment because he's dead. So whatever choice you make, your concern shouldn't be embarrassing your uncle. And this makes a lot of sense if there is no afterlife. And it's just worth noting that for those of us who do believe in an afterlife, our relationship with those who have passed will continue on. And whether or not they can see what's going on in real time after they've passed, I do believe, for instance, that my parents will have a full understanding of everything. They'll know everything that has happened from the time that they died to the time that I see them again in the next world. Therefore, it is relevant, contrary to what Koehl says, what the uncle might feel or think having his secret revealed. Right? It's relevant. If you're going to meet your uncle again, that's relevant information. The relationship continues beyond this life. And so that's one area in which I would disagree with Koehl, but that's because I come from a Christian worldview and I believe in life after death. On the other hand, it is interesting to think about how our loved ones who have passed away will be changed by that experience. If you think back in your life to some sort of traumatic event or dramatic event of some sort that really changed who you are as a person, that really changed your perspective on life, how much more so will people's perspectives be changed when they've gone through the process of death and they've met God face to face? And God continues in a direct and powerful way the work that he began in them in this lifetime. So I think about, well, what would my dad think about X? And I'm misguided if I think, well, these are the things he said about X when he was alive. Well, what he thinks about X could be completely different now. What I think about my father's personality might be based on my experiences with him when he was on this earth. His personality probably has changed dramatically through that traumatic and dramatic process of dying and being in the presence of God. So I find that fascinating. I disagree with Koehl that it doesn't matter now kind of whether the uncle would be embarrassed. The uncle, from my perspective, is still alive, not on earth, but he's still alive. Your relationship with him is just as real. And so we should keep that in mind. If you hold a worldview that believes in life after death, then we should continue to think in terms of how our decisions now impact those who have passed or will impact them. It's a lot of speculation, hard to understand exactly how people will be impacted, but it is a relevant sort of thing to think about. The only other thing I want to say here, again, is we've got this dilemma of a natural desire to fulfill, to get to know our parents better, even after they've passed, because that helps us to thrive. Family relationships from a teleological perspective are absolutely central to flourishing, and knowing one another, the more we know one another, the deeper those relationships can be. And so I do think there's a teleological reason for this young man to know these things. On the other hand, we believe in respecting people's privacy, and that's very essential for relationships as well. It might be that this thought experiment that I talked about in a previous video would be helpful here. Could this person imagine his father coming back from the dead, the uncle coming back, and having a conversation with them about why he wants to know these things, and having a back and forth with them? And if he could imagine doing that, and the uncle and the father would say, "We understand now where you're coming from. Please do talk to your mother about this," then I think that he might be able to justify that action. Now, if you have no idea what they would say, or you don't trust yourself to have an honest judgment of the result of that thought experiment, then you just shouldn't do it. It's irrelevant to the case. So anyway, I find this fascinating. I'm so curious about my parents' lives, and I want to know more about them. And this is the last thing I'll say about that. As a Christian, I do believe that I will be reunited with my family in heaven, in the next world. And everything everything will be known at that point. So, but there's things I don't know now for the next 20, 30, 50 years. That's okay. I will understand everything. That intimacy I desire with my parents will be complete in the next world. So if I face this sort of dilemma, I would be inclined to absolutely respect my promise to the uncle. And perhaps if I could talk to my mother about this in a way where she could willingly divulge the information, I might try that. Otherwise, let it be, and someday in eternity I'll understand everything. But that's my Christian perspective influencing how I think about this kind of a case.